Aloha, beautiful souls. Welcome to our end of days, and that's DAZE. As usual, raw, unedited, just going to kind of talk. Uh, it's interesting because, like, what is my channel, right? What am I doing here? And I'm just kind of winging it, you guys. Like, that's a big portion of this. And I'll try my best to explain it, I guess, in this video. I don't have a script. I usually don't think about what I'm going to talk about until I start talking. I've heard of automatic, writing or, just kind of being in a flow state. And I've kind of realized too that when I start going on, I seem to get in a flow state when it comes to words and things just start, coming through. Some people might call that channeling, but there's, if it is, it's channeling God. All right. It's channeling like source energy. It's not something which is evil. So many people are so quick to judge. And this is kind of just what I wanted to bring awareness to. Like, I have seen uh, a lot, and I've experienced a lot, and it's this interesting middle ground that I seem to continually find myself in upon, whatever. Because on the one hand, an energy which is shaming and controlling is not an energy that I want to follow. At the same time, I do care about, like, I don't even know what to call it, about the collective, about us getting along, about doing, like, quote unquote the right thing. And to me, it's just simple. It's super simple at this point. The patterns and behaviors and things from the past, I think what I tend to call, generational trauma, maybe even trauma from this lifetime, from experiences we've had or things we've undergone, done to ourselves, that was done unto us by other people's choices, other people's free will. And that's a discussion for another video. Free will, I'd love to talk about. I could go on and on just from my perspective, you guys, just from what I've experienced, what I feel like has been revealed to me, what I've been shown. Like, one of the things that I feel like I inherited and have perpetuated until more recently is like a state or a spirit of guilt. All right. And this is what is very difficult for me to kind of engage with sometimes. And so I'm going to talk about maybe two different sides of things. And really, for the most part, I would say, because sometimes we lean one side or the other. Maybe we're really lucky or unlucky, and have a. And it's, to some degree, we do. Just like I said in the previous video, just like the masculine can't exist without the feminine, and so we have a little bit of each, within there. Still, there usually is one particular energy side trauma thing that we lean toward. And so, one of the things that I've known in my life, all right, very much so, is, and that's been exposed, in my own personal relationships, in my parents' relationships, in my grandparents' relationships, and this is what I mean when it's generational trauma. It's something which has been perpetuated for a while. And so, just as a side note, I'm sorry. I know I'm actually looking down at this, and so it causes, like more blood vessels, I guess, to just be shown and everything. And but this is what I have. Ground's kind of uneven. I have my phone on my backpack, so it is what it is, you guys. When I have a different setup, I try to elevate it a little bit, but it is what it is. It is what it is. But getting back on track with generational trauma, what I've experienced personally, and like I said in my previous video as well, I tend to have a very strong feminine side, and to me, that's very feeling oriented. All right, and from my research experiences, revelations, if you want to call them that, it is the feminine energy which brings abundance into our life, and that the masculine energy by itself cannot experience that richness and that wealth and that abundance of life of life on all forms. All right, not just monetary wealth. We're talking about abundance of health, abundance of joy, abundance of relationships which are reciprocal. And the more that this feminine aspect of us is ignored, controlled, uh, abused, and even I'll get into that in a second, but just like unaccountable. All right, that's when things get crazy. All right, that's when things are not good. Just to be kind of stated plainly, that's where scarcity comes in. That's where self conflict comes in. That's where we blame God, we blame ourselves, we blame each other, we blame the weather. We get into a state where things are outside of us, and in such a way where it's a powerless feeling that we also resist and that we rage against. And to me, it doesn't have to be that way. It just straight up does not have to be that way. Um, and it's a process. All right, it's a big process. Getting kind of back on track. I'm just kind of spitballing here. All right, because I don't know who is going to end up watching this. All right. And so I'm kind of stereotyping certain things because it's all a little bit more nuanced than this. Okay. Um, but being in these uh, particular circles, if you want to call them that, like a 12-step programs, for example, there seems to be a relationship dynamic where there is this enabling energy, allowing energy, and then there's this abusive energy. And so this is this pattern which can continue forever. All right. If this was like a man and a woman in a relationship, all right, well, let's just say a romantic partnership, all right, a romantic relationship. This is a divine union that we're talking about. And so in a unhealthy diseased format, it's like each side kind of like puts more weight in each other's backpack. And so we get heavier and heavier and heavier together. And so that one metaphor for that, right, is that we're each going to hell together. All right, in that particular situation, because our lives aren't getting better. We're blaming the other person. We're blaming ourselves. We're getting into a situation where we're acting as a condemnatory force, and that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Um, like like this is what I mean, where it's just like it can exist, all right, but the type of energetic patterning isn't sustainable forever. All right. And at the same time, it is, but that's what hell is. All right. Hell is this perpetual state, this eternal state of harming oneself and harming other people, and then continuing on with that. All right. Just choosing to continue on with that. And this is why free will is such a gift. All right. It's so important. Uh, and also why God is just so forgiving, so beautiful, so wonderful. Gives us the opportunity to be here, to change our patterns, our behaviors. Um, you know, and it's probably a little bit more wider scale, and I won't talk about it too much today. But I was thinking about ancestral, curses, ancestral karma, and so getting back to it. What I wanted to talk about today was this relationship dynamic between like the abuser and the enabler. And this is what's very interesting, and why a lot of the times the people who are saying something are really saying it to themselves. And so I would find that enablers very much want to give love, right? They very much want to empower other individuals, right? And in the process of doing so, but they really want to empower themselves. They really want that God energy that's coming through them, through their voice, to other people to empower themselves. And it's very interesting because I've sat through quite a few AA meetings, all right, and their dynamic is just so different than my lived experiences. They performed and did things which harmed other people actively, and in doing so, it seems like they have a certain mindset or something, which is just different than mine. It's just different than mine. If I feel like I'm harming somebody else, like truly harming somebody else, um, like it's not that I can't deal with it. I stop it. I separate myself from them. Like truly, like I just won't be there for them, because if what I'm doing is harming them and I can't stop myself, then I remove myself. And at the same time, I also remove myself, like at this point now, where if a situation seems toxic, and a large part of this from me has been my inability to set proper boundaries, and I admit that, it's just like I want to give so much love, and I've lost so much money, so much time, so much effort, so much emotional energy over giving into people whose only intent is to get as much as they can from me. Like they don't look to reciprocate anything. They're not looking to do anything other than just like be a parasite, just soak up stuff. And it's interesting, what like as someone who love who, like and this is what I mean by programming and everything, where it's just like if we're all connected, if we're all one, right, all children of God, how do I move forward in a situation like that? Like especially someone who has had patterns of enablement, all right, I but at this point it's just like I take responsibility for myself and I lean heavily into this right now, and I think it's because it's this mix, all right, like the more feminine side, the more feminine traumatized sides, they really need this masculine like framework in order to empower themselves, to give themselves a structure and an ability to say no, right? To be themselves, to not have to resort to extremes, all right? Because that's kind of what the feminine energy does on that level, where if it is, it's like a pendulum swinging, you guys, where it goes to one extreme to the other extreme. So it'll be like, oh, I love you, you're the best, everything, I'll give everything to you. And then if that feminine energy is not treated well, what ends up happening is it swings to the other side. And then it's I hate you, I'll stab you in the back, I'll cut off your wiener, stuff like that, which is abhorrent, and this is what I mean with the extremes. Enablement is just as particularly abhorrent as that traditional abhorrence. Um, think about like an alcoholic, all right, where you love someone, but you don't want to see them continuing to destroy themselves over something, all right? And if you just continue to buy them alcohol, if you continue to give them money, to overlook their continuing degradation, all right, physical, mental, emotional, um, it is you're you're helping them, all right, get worse. And so that is also a form of abuse. And that's something that I had to come to terms with. And so when it ever seems like if I just leave a situation, especially people who I tend to care about everybody, you guys, I'm maybe a big softie, but and I see myself in just about everybody that I meet. And so it's hard for me to, it's been, okay, I want to take a step back there. It's been hard for me in the past to stop giving in certain situations. And retroactively, taking a step back, there's math I used to do, right? Or I'm calling it like spiritual math, but it's just like, in division, right? If there's a remainder left over, we have to carry it over and then continue to do the equation, right? And so I came up with a saying, which has helped remind me too, where it's just like, I got to remember when I'm doing the math, right? I got to carry the one, all right, and the one is me, all right, as an individual. I got to carry myself too, right? Not only do I want to give to this world, not only do I want to give love and expressions and money, abundance, whatever to this world, to the people in it, because I see them as myself. I also am to give it to myself. All right, I'm to allow it of myself, and that when I don't carry the one, I open myself up to relationships and dynamics which are inherently poisonous to me. And why I've been able to step away from that is because I went fully through, and just like what I was talking about before. If I don't carry the like, and so like just kind of piecing this together, in an Alcoholics Anonymous kind of a group setting, right? If I'm to say, well, I got to think about myself, I got to carry the one here. These individuals are going to take that the wrong way, and what they're going to hear usually, from my experiences, is you're wrong. All right, you're straight up wrong, because if you start thinking about yourself, that's all you're going to care about. All right, and this is the hilarity of this. All right, is that no matter what path you find yourself on, if you're giving to others, you're so giving to other people, or hey, I'm all about myself, I'm all about my own stuff. Fully follow through. Fully follow through with that, because it will lead to the same place. All right, it'll both lead to the same place, which is beautiful. All right. And I already hinted toward it, earlier on speaking. But if you're fully about giving to other people, making the world a better place, making the situation, it's not about self-sacrifice, all right? Because in doing that kind of self-sacrifice, you harm the world. You harm other people. And I know for some people that might be hard to hear. But it's from my perspective, right? And as who's talking, who's making this video, that's the truth. And the truth of that on the other end is also just as true. Because you see these alcoholics, if they were truly self-centered, to the nth degree that I'm talking about, they would be able to see, wow, my continued drinking is really harming myself. I'm not feeling very good. This is harming my relationships, which actually enrich me. I'm not really doing very good for myself, am I? It's going to be better for me, for my individual self, to help the world, to be of service to other people, and that actually is being of service to me. That actually is helping me as an individual. And that's basically it. Like, they are two sides of the same coin, all right? And if you fully embrace either side, it leads to this enlightenment, all right? And this is what I've seen, all right? Like, this is what I've truly seen on either side, and I've had to oscillate between both of these sides because, and I don't know, maybe everybody does, all right? Maybe this is just part of being human. I don't know, I'm just sharing my experiences here, and if anything, I want more people, YouTube, the world, it doesn't matter, but just more people to be open to expressing themselves authentically, saying their experiences, seeing what they see, be honest, and then through that honesty, through that engagement, we receive feedback from the world too, and we also get to hear ourselves. All right, sometimes I'm not really, I don't interact with too many people very often, and I get mixed signals. Sometimes I get mixed signals where I'm supposed to receive corrective actions from the group, or I'm supposed to receive corrective actions from a mentor, or something. Sorry, there's a helicopter. I don't know if you can hear it. Flying right over us, man. Directly over us. I always take those things as a sign. We're doing good work here. God's work. So, to kind of get back on subject there, a little bit distracting, but I ain't gonna let it affect the vibe, even if I can't intellectually remember what I was talking about. But yeah, in order to support ourselves, I think it's good that we support other people. But the other side of that too is, in order to support other people, we need to support ourselves. And that there's this process and this ongoing process. And I'll try to relate this more in a different video. I'm already at 20 minutes right now. But we'll see, and maybe I'll leave that into the next video right here, and I'll kind of leave it right there, because me receiving mentorship is kind of an interesting thing, all right? Because this goes kind of back into a dynamic and a pattern which has been unhealthy for me, because I really very much do want to receive. If anything, in the past, I would just do whatever anybody told me. I would just believe whatever they told me. All right, if they tell me that's the way, that's the way it is, even if my intuition is saying something different. All right, and that's been the key factor, is me throughout this lifetime. I've been refining that sense of listening to my intuition, and then also receiving what other people are saying. And just pretty much over a long period of time, most people are just talking to themselves. And so being in a mentor relationship, being in a collective relationship, a lot of times the advice that people are telling you to give, or that you need to be this and you need to be that they're really talking about themselves. Like, and this is also why I frame, my conversations here in these videos the way that I do. I'm not, even if I'm saying this is how we operate, this is how it is, I always have that caveat there. This is how I see it. All right. This is my perspective. Maybe it's different for you. All right. And having that freedom to be able to adopt different perspectives, I think, is so important. Because I would be the first to say, just like so many of my perspectives, all right, have been absorbed from other people, all right, that they've shared either on videos, in person, just going through things. Some of them were God-given completely, just like in nature, like me just being here, being present with myself. But by far, it's like so many of my perspectives have been through other people. And I would be the first to say there is no shame, zero shame in it. All right, don't shame yourself for it, for having a perspective that somebody has, and be like, you know what, I really want that perspective. Go ahead, adopt it. All right. The challenge is that the existing format for how we see the world, right, is going to be challenged, and then it's going to take time to reinforce the new pattern, the new perspective that you want to have as your own, and also the old perspective. And when I talk about, trauma-based mind control, or brainwashing, conditioning, this is kind of what I'm talking about. And it doesn't even have to be from an outside source, like I said. A lot of the perspectives that we have, which are really unhealthy, come from a place of wanting to defend ourselves, but they were made from such a highly charged emotional state that it becomes like a worldview. Like, I'm trying to think of something, and I want to speak from personal experience. One of the things that have been difficult for me is betrayal. All right, where people that I've trusted, people who are supposed to love me just as much as I love them, seem to not be as trustworthy. And so these betrayal realities, which is what it was, were multiple layered. All right, and at least for me, I'm gonna say at this point, there's so many layers to it. There's, like I said in my last, that's which is the name of it. There's layers and layers and layers, guys. So I'm only talking about one particular layer here at this point, and this is how I see things, because I like to simultaneously bring it back to myself, where I almost need to be an individual. I need to be selfish to the nth degree, because I feel like that is how we free each other. That is how because if I don't claim responsibility for my reality, for my output of my mind, of my emotions and everything, if I blame it on other people, or I feel like I need to be saved by other people, external forces, then I'm disempowered. Then I've disempowered and removed myself from my own personal relationship with God. And so I'm not going to do that. I'll never do that again. I'll never do that again. All right, ever, 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 ever. We got to knock on wood, right? That it didn't hurt this tree. All right, this like this. If anything, this tree hurt my knuckles. But just showing, where I trust God. All right, like if God says, hey, you got to do this challenge again. Okay, I'll do it. With that said, though, if I have any kind of free will in this, I have any kind of capacity where it's just like never again. I learned my lesson, you guys. There, like my relationship with God is mine, and the way that I've seen it, the way it's been shown to me, the way that God tells me, all right, is that I don't have to. Like that hard lesson of giving up one's own relationship with God to somebody else, to external forces, that never needs to happen again once we've learned that lesson. And so that's been an ongoing process for me too, because even being here, interacting with certain individuals and everything, it keeps tempting me to give away my power. All right, and I'm better, than I've ever been before. Am I perfect? I like to think I'm on the way. There we go, right? Like and it's not about, it's progress, not perfection, right? And so if I'm on the way to perfection, that means we're making progress, right? So I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. And that just because your particular trauma might be different than someone else's trauma, a lot of times we're looking at each other and we're looking at that same trauma just through the different lens of relationships and everything. And so this is also why, from my end, right, as mostly an enabler, I don't look back at my abusers, and I don't see them in the light of this is their fault. Because guess what? And what a lot of these abusers aren't willing to acknowledge is that they might say just like, "Oh, I was so selfish and just thinking about myself, like in my drinking or whatnot." Yeah, but look behind the veil. All right, they hated themselves. Why do you think they would drink? Why do you think they would continue to abuse other people or do that? They were operating with, okay, in my opinion, faulty software, internal stuff. But they were doing the best that they could with what they had at the time. And does that excuse their actions? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's just meant to provide perspective. And the same is true for us too. All right, as enablers in this case, where it's just like, let's really look behind the thing. Yes, we love these other people. How much did we love ourselves? Did we also hate ourselves? Did we have that same wound of hating ourselves or thinking that we're unworthy of love or something? And so in this relationship, it's being reflected back upon us, right? We're showing what we're giving in that case. It's God giving us the opportunity to see what we're putting out there, what we're giving forward, and that we have the opportunity to change that. So I'll leave it at that. I really will leave it at that this time, okay? So yeah, I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being part of my healing journey as I'm part of yours at this point, right? So yeah. So peace out, love within, and catch you on the flip side.